Good morning. Out for another walk and talk, processing things. How are you all doing today? I hope you're having a lovely day in your realm. A little overcast here, still muggy and warm. Today I'm sort of processing the feeling of the pressure of being consistent in topping what I've done the day before, or the talk that I did before, of the pressure of this, of what I'm putting on myself, of how can I continue to do this and be consistent and be good and be better than the time before. And as I'm walking and thinking about it, feeling that little cringy feeling in my gut, what we call in the chakra world, my solar plexus, which is our identity chakra. And why am I, not a great question to ask myself, but why am I putting that extra pressure on myself? Because it only creates the resistance to do what I've been doing, and added unwarranted stress to myself, increasing my cortisol, which is not always the greatest. But why? I find myself asking my unconscious mind, why am I feeling the pressure? Why am I adding the pressure to myself? And again, not the best question to ask. I also find myself wanting to ask, why am I asking the wrong question? We always fall back to, when we're stressed or overwhelmed, we always fall back to our lowest level of coping mechanism. And for me right now, that's falling into asking the wrong questions. Falling back into, I don't know, I don't want to know, hiding my head in the sand. And that doesn't get me anywhere. And I get to recognize that I'm still holding myself to my word. I'm still processing out loud while I walk. I've been walking every day, which has been great, building that self-trust. But my question today is, what does that pressure do for me? Because in the instant that I felt the cringiness, it wasn't a good stress. It felt shrinkage, like I'm shrinking back, and that's not what I want to do. That's not my goal. My goal is to grow. So where in your life have you felt like you wanted to shrink? You've put undue pressure on yourself, unwarranted stress. You felt that unwarranted stress that's led you to the fridge and to a binge or to an overeating session. I get to celebrate that I'm aware of how this is showing up in my body and in my thought system. And I get to celebrate that I'm actually not thinking about food as I feel the cringiness and the wanting to shrink. I'm actually glad I'm out for a walk and processing through the unwarranted extra pressure that I was putting on myself. And it gets to turn into a talk while I walk. And maybe it will help somebody else. Becoming aware of the process of what's going on in our head. Being able to slow it down, because most often it happens in less than a blink of an eye. And there's no conscious awareness to what just happened. We process so quickly, oftentimes we don't even realize what we just processed or thought, felt, reacted to. And if there is a little glimmer of it, most often we push it away because it doesn't make sense. You know, what happens if we slow it down and start to make sense of it and become aware of what it was and why it was there? And that's a practice. That's often why I recommend journaling, so that we can slow down what is going on in our minds. We have to see the pictures we're creating in our head and what they're associated to, so that we can realize the emotions they're creating that's driving the behavior in our external world. So think back to a time that you had that undue, unwarranted extra pressure you put on yourself. And can you remember it? And what image does your mind recall when you think of that time? You might not think that you see images, but you do, because they happen so fast. What's the impression that you get? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you physically feel, emotionally as well? When you recall the memory of that time, of the extra pressure you put on yourself for whatever event it was, when you bring it forward to remember it, what we call submodalities? What do you see, hear, feel, and experience when you remember it? Get your journal out and write down what you experience when you remember that time when you had that undue pressure, that unwarranted pressure. Then I want you to think of another time that you felt overwhelmed, stressed, undue pressure. And pull up that picture when you remember that. Are they the same, similar? What are the differences? What are the similarities? Jot it down. And start to keep track of what happens in your head when you see those memories of creating undue pressure, unwarranted pressure on yourself that creates the stress and the overwhelm. Start to notice your patterns, your strategies, so that you can start to change them. The next step, after you get several of those, you get practice of pulling up those pictures of what's going on in your head when you feel those things. The next step would be to remember a time that you felt completely confident and completed something, and you were celebrating the outcome. Pull up that picture, pull up that memory. What do you see? What do you hear? What are you feeling and experiencing when you remember that experience of complete confidence and completing the task, the event, whatever it was? And jot it down. Get several of those in your journal and notice the patterns and the strategies of what happens when you're completely confident. Then the next step is to compare the two. What's the differences? What's the contrast? Then the next step, when you have all that, this is going to take a little while. It's not something you're just going to sit down and do in 10 minutes. The next step is when you start to feel that unwarranted pressure, the overwhelm, you pull up that picture and then you change something in that picture to something that when you feel completely confident. You change what you see, or you change what you hear, or you change what you feel, or you move the picture from where you're currently holding it when you recall it. So if you notice somewhere in space around you where you have that picture holding it, is it right in front of you? Is it to the left? Is it to the right? Is it up? Is it down? If you move the unwarranted pressure to where it is that you have complete confidence, how does that feel? Notice the difference. What is the one thing you can change in the picture of unwarranted pressure and overwhelm to complete confidence? And notice how you feel. Does it change it? So that's my challenge to you today. Start to slow things down. Be aware of when you go into undue pressure, overwhelm, and stress. What is the picture that you pull up in your mind? Slow things down, become aware of it, start to practice that. Notice what you see, hear, feel, experience when you're going through it. And if you don't have your journal with you, record it, just like I'm doing with my recorder on my phone. This is what I'm experiencing right now. This is the event. This is what I see, hear, feel in an experience. When I say feel, it's physically feel and emotionally feel. Start to keep that journal. Start to keep track so that we can start to change when we go into those uncomfortable feelings and experiences, that we can change those so that we don't have to experience them. We can experience something different. So leave a comment. Let me know if you're going to try this. If you're trying it, how it's going. I'd love to hear. And I hope this helps. Stay true to you. Live radiantly, my beautiful queen.